Well, hey folks, it's John with Ozarks Backroads. We're in the Ozarks Backroads garage today. We're working on the little project going on here on the Triumph Tiger 800. We're going to put some LED headlight bulbs in it today. These are the SNGL is the brand. I really could not find out where these come from, so I did a lot of searching. I could not find out, and they're not marked where they're made. So that may not be good, but we're going to give it a try anyhow. And these are a little different than ones I've used in the past. These are a direct, they call them a one-to-one. They're physically the same size as the halogens that were in it. They're made to go in the same space. They're not any bigger. They don't require any more room. They don't have the big heat sink back here on the back like an automotive. These are designed for motorcycles. So that's good. I've had the best luck on LEDs in the past with a flat-sided with the LED chips on opposite sides like this, and in the same location as the filaments would be in the H4 bulb in this area here. That works the best with the headlight housing to reflect the light. It most directly emulates the H4, having the LED chips in the same place that the filaments are in the halogen bulb. So, and it's even got the little reflectors just like the reflector here in the halogen bulb for the low beam. So this should be, the pattern I'm fairly confident it's going to look very similar to this, but we'll check it out. So we'll go ahead and get into opening the housing up and seeing about changing these. And we'll see how the pattern looks on the door, and then we'll change them out and check it again and see if these things emulate our pattern and how bright the lights are. So stick around, we'll tear into this Tiger and throw some bulbs in it and see how they look. Got my light pattern marked out here on the garage door. We'll take a look at this. This is with the original halogens that are in the bike. And there's the low beam and there's the high beam. So on the low beam here, I've got the center of the left lights right in this area here and the right lights over here on the low. And I've got a nice cutoff right here. If you can see that shadow. So it's just kind of a bright stripe across here, and it's cut off to keep from blinding oncoming traffic. And then when we go to high beam, both of them are almost together right in this area here, just like a spotlight. So, and they're a little bit higher, and you don't have the cutoff. You can't see real good through this, but it's just a round pattern. And the cutoff's gone. So we'll go back and look at the low and high again here. There's the low, and there's the high. All right, we'll change these bulbs and then we'll do this again. It's kind of hard to get set up on this, but right here is the right side headlight bulb in the housing. And these housings are sealed up. They've got these caps that you just twist, and they come off the back. They got a nice O-ring on them, seal them up. And then your bulb's in here. Got your connector, just comes off the back. They're just like every other halogen bulb that I've seen, and that bail flips open, and out comes our bulb. So there that is. Let's see if we can get our new one in here. And here it is. And naturally the bail doesn't want to, it wants to get, oh there we go, it wants to be in the way. There she goes. I just clip this back in. There's one side and there's the other. There it is. All right. We will throw our plug back on it here. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to leave the caps off for now just in case I have an issue. We'll go over here and do the other side. We've got our both bulbs in now. We're going to take a look at the pattern here on the door. I've been careful not to move the bike. It's sitting up on the center stand. The low beam here. And it looks pretty similar to what we had before. We've got a cutoff in the same spot here. Looks like the bulbs are centered pretty much where they were. And we still got that nice cutoff, so we won't be blinding any oncoming traffic. So that'll work good. We'll take a look at this high beam. And it's kind of the same thing. We've got the cluster right in the center here on the high beam. The only difference that I'm noticing is on the bulb here, we're still retaining the cutoff from the low beam right here. So we've just added the high beam. The other bulbs, the cutoff kind of went away and we just had the high beam right in the center. But this is fine. We're still cutting off. We won't be blinding oncoming traffic here. And still got our nice bright spot right here. So that should work. And I figured they would. The way those things were made, they should work good in the housing for where the halogen bulbs were. These are 20 watts on the low beam each. Each bulb's 20 watts low beam, 40 watts high beam. Whereas the halogen bulbs were 50 watts low beam and 65 watts high beam. So that's pretty big savings there in power from the alternator, the charging system. So yeah, I think that'll work good. We'll take this out for a night ride and see. It's going to be brighter, I can see that. That was the installation of the LED, the SNGL LED headlight bulbs. Those look like they're going to work pretty good, and I'm sure they're going to be quite a bit brighter. So I'm pretty happy with that. Less power draw on the charging system. Should work out good. Stick around. I've got a set of upper crash bars that protect the plastic here alongside the tank. The plastic up in here, they're the original Triumph from Triumph bars for the Tiger. We're going to install those and see how they look and see how much protection we get from them. We've got our upper crash bars, I guess, that protect the fuel tank, and the side covers there on the fuel tank they showed up today, so we're going to continue on here. You can kind of see some of the brackets and stuff that comes with it. To install it, and they're basically the same finish and everything as the lower bars. This bike came with lower bars but not upper bars. This is the XCX, so I guess you have to get the XCA to get the upper bars with it. So there's the lower bars, got the same finish. Looks like we have to remove the side covers here, which I've done on other videos. It's pretty simple. The upper panels here have a couple of screws on them, and then in the back there, and then there's two right here on the sides. Right there, that'll get this piece, this upper piece off, and then we'll get this off. So I'll go ahead and get those off, and we'll see what it takes to install these bars on this Tiger here. Now we got to pull the two motor mounts right here into the head, the rear, behind the head and in front of the head. This is where we're going to mount up at. So we're going to pull this one loose. There is a spacer behind here. In between this frame and the head is a metal spacer. And we got to put that back in when we mount the bars. There it is there. It's just like a really thick washer. It just sits between the head and this and the frame here. On this front one, right here, there's a nut on the back of it. And I've got a 14 millimeter wrench on that nut. And then again, I've got a spacer in between the frame here and the, sits in between the frame here and the head. So the bolt here that holds this bar right here on the lower crash bar down into the block, they said to take it out, so I did. I've inserted my new bar here, okay? And it's kind of a finagling deal to get this bracket underneath this hose right here, but you can do it. And then it'll fit in there just like that. And they've given us a big thick inch-long spacer that goes in this front mount hole right here. And then they gave us a new bolt that goes through this. And we've got to remember to, it's got a big heavy washer that goes on the outside. And then we got to remember to put our spacer back in place when we put this in. So we'll get that up there. See if we can do this. Okay. And then on the back side, we reused the original nut that we took off. And the original bolt, we discard. We're not going to use that. It's too short. We'll tighten that up in a minute. They gave us a new bolt. And then this bracket sits right on top of the mount for the lower bracket. They gave us a new bolt and a washer for that. It's a little longer bolt. There it goes. And then a new bolt back here and a washer. It goes through here, and we got to remember to put our spacer back in here too. If I can get my 14 wrench back on here. I'm going to go ahead and snug this one before I torque them down. And snug up this lower one down here. I would say that is more than enough there. That's plenty. I think that's plenty. So that's installed. Okay, we're over here on the right side now. And we do have a couple of brackets here. They've given us this one here. This sits on top of this bar for the lower crash bar, the same as the bolt we had to do on the other side. Well, this one has a bracket that sits on top of it and then bolts down through this bracket into the block. If I can find the hole, there it is. Okay. And then the front motor mount here on the front of the head, they had us to remove the bolt that was in it. They gave us a new bolt and a washer, and then there's a little bracket with a nut welded to the back of it here that the bar is going to mount to, and a spacer on the back. Goes together in that orientation there. Goes back where that was. On the back side is a nut. They gave us a new lock nut for it. It's a 14. So I had to use a socket, go in from the back side, put the socket in the hole. Then I'll get that started. I've got a long extension and the socket on the back side, on the nut on the back side here. So I'm going to use a ratchet on the other side to tighten that with, and then I'll just hold this side. I'm going to leave it loose for now because I need to be able to move this. The rear motor mount here on the back of the head, we got to take this loose. It looks like it goes something like that. We'll start the new bolt and washer with the anti-seize. We'll start it. It's a little longer than the original. Both of these bolts up here that go into these two brackets that we mounted are the same. They're 8mm with a washer they've supplied. They just screw into nuts that are welded on the backs of these brackets. And then it says to go ahead and tighten up our two motor mounts here before we do this stuff. Leave all that kind of loose. So I'll tighten this. Okay, that's plenty tight. Now we'll get this guy. All right, I believe we got that. I believe that's plenty tight. We've got that installed. Now we'll see if how the side panels are to get back on. Trying to see which goes to what here. The black goes to the black. That makes sense. So we get the black on the black. And the green goes to the green. All right, so we got that on. Whoops. And then this just has some pins that sit down in some grommets up here. Push it down in them, and then we got our two bolts. A bolt in here and a push pin. And that's it. And we got some pretty good protection right here. We could still get the blinker. Could possibly, but these things are made to fold up, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But my plastic's going to be protected. And the big thing for me is I got a place to mount a camera now up high on the bike. I was having to mount them down here, my second camera, and that's just not much of a shot. This will be a lot better view. Okay, we're putting the beak on now. I don't see any reason why this should be a problem. It just slides around the forks. It's got a couple of bolts here on the insides, and then there's a bolt here on either side, and then two bolts underneath. There it is. The bolts that go in up here on the front, on the outside, they have a nut that goes on the back side of them. So that's the only one that has a nut on the back side. Everything else just screws into a clip. And then underneath there are two more screws that go in from the bottom. If I can see up in that dark hole. So that's it. We've installed our crash bars. Well, folks, that wraps up our little session here on putting the LED headlights and the upper crash bars on the Triumph Tiger XCX. We're getting it turned into an XCA slowly but surely. We got the bars and the LED lights now. We'll have to see what we can do next. All that went pretty good. I'm really excited about these bars. I'm going to have a place to mount a camera, and I won't get my plastic tore up here on my gas tank. So that'll be a pretty good deal. And I've actually ridden a week now on the headlights. I had to wait on the bars to finish this video. But the headlights are working good, and I rode them in the dark the other night, and they're pretty bright. I don't think anybody's going to complain about not having enough light out of those. Well, I appreciate y'all hanging out with me and checking out some projects on the Triumph Tiger 800. I invite you all to come back until I catch up with you again. We'll catch you later.